Hey folks, Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of the Rush Hour podcast. We have some updates to the Candace Owens, Brigitte Macron defamation trial, not from the court side, but from the media. I'm going to share what left-leaning and right-leaning media is saying about her trouble. This is actually from a center-right organization called The Bulwark. They have a new article that just came out, said Candace Owens is in some real trouble. I'm going to share what they have to say, plus some court documents that refute some of Candace's claims. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, but you didn't read the whole thing, or there's more to the story. Maybe. Listen, I promised you guys this. I'm not going to judge people that believe Candace's theory that Brigitte Macron was born a man, namely her brother. I'm not going to judge people. I'm just going to try to figure it out for myself and cover this as ethically and as morally as I think I should. That's all. So let's get to where we're all trying to go. So on the right here is Will Sommer. He wrote this article. I'm going to share what he has to say and then pieces of the article. So just stick around. But first, the Pod Save America bros are now covering this. You know, I got a comment from somebody saying, Dave, I can't believe you're platforming this. This is ridiculous. I'm disappointed in you. And it's like, I'm sorry. This is going to be the biggest defamation case. And I think there is some encouragement by YouTube to not have people cover it because the monetization isn't there. Now, I don't do everything based on monetization, but you got to get out of the door and pay bills. We had a video that took off that would have made normally over $1,200, and it made $56. Now, don't cry for me, Argentina. I'm just saying there is an incentive there, I think, to kind of keep people from talking about it because it is so quacky, right? Well, Pod Save America is not even including Candace Owens in their title. I think they're trying to avoid it because Candace Owens herself is demonetized. Now, don't lose sleep over Candace. She's making an absolute fortune. She's just not making it from YouTube ad revenue. She's making it from third-party advertisers. But trust me when I say, you know, she's well into the deep six figures a month, maybe seven. Probably seven, actually, with all of the team that she has. So here's what they have to say about Candace and why she's being sued. And by the way, a lot of people will say, yeah, no, it's not about the trans issue. It's about the deep, these other deep issues. And I just have to keep on reminding people, it doesn't matter what else Candace brings up. As far as the lawsuit's concerned, if they can nab her on several defamatory statements, she's cooked.
Brigitte Macron is a man. And now it's gotten to the point where French President Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte have filed a defamation suit in the United States against Candace for spreading, quote, outlandish, defamatory, and far-fetched fictions that this Brigitte was born a man. Now, this is a pretty serious threat, right? If a head of state is suing you in court, like, that scared the shit out of me. But let's listen to how Candace responded.
You were born a man and you will die a man. That's the point I'm making. So give us a sample. I'll send my doctors to take your blood. We'll figure it out real quick, however you want to go about this. Hey, how about just giving us some pictures again of you growing up, raising your children? That would be fine.
So this is where Candace loses me, the finger wagging and telling her directly to her face, you were born a man. If you're going to continue to repeat these claims, I think, not a lawyer, I think you have to continue to say, it is my opinion that you were born a man. That is my opinion. Because at what point is Candace no longer protected from opinion when she's clearly stating something as fact? But more so than that, this is where Candace loses me. She loses me on the vitriol, and it is very vitriolic by her. To just be like, this is, and I don't know, that's where it loses me. And in the end, we're all salesmen here, right? You got to sell your audience on your beliefs. And she's not selling this center-right organization. These are essentially Republican never-Trumpers. I think that's a good way to describe the Bulwark. And here's what they have to say about the lawsuit.
Honestly, total attention to it. It's definitely been on my radar. And then I read your false flag and I got into the specifics of what Candace Owens had alleged about Brigitte Macron. And I was flabbergasted. It is the most ridiculous, outlandish, stupendous conspiracy in a long time. Can you unwrap it in a way that it's never going to make sense, but can you just unwrap it?
So he says it's never going to make sense, but he goes to describe it in his article. Candace Owens is in some real trouble. Her wild attacks on Brigitte Macron have led to a serious defamation suit and diplomatic trouble. Candace Owens wants to depose Donald Trump. It's a wild stuff. Now, I personally would rather us focus on unearthing the Epstein files. I do think there is a bipartisan real unification about exposing bad actors within our government. Now, how much time and energy do we want to spend on the French government, their elections, what they're doing, the deep issues and that go on? Well, some people will argue, but it's all tied together. The Rothschilds and when the Titanic sank, the banking institution flipped and the Federal Reserve and all. And it's like, okay, too far. It's just too much for me. I just want us all to get universal health care. I want to live in a world where my wife can get a year paid leave before having to go back to work, because I think we live in the richest country in the world and our taxes don't go to fund that country. They go to fund bombs and starvation and other places that are, and I think Candace and I, for the most part, can agree on that. I think we can agree on that our money's not going towards us, but this whole idea of making America great, it's like, is that what's happening? Is that what's happening by going trillions of dollars in debt and tax breaks for the ultra wealthy? I mean, and I'm talking the ultra wealthy, People like Candace will pay less in taxes as a percentage than people like me and you. It's just a fact. That's the new tax law. Anyhow, so that's the world I want to live in. And Candace can do what she wants. She can walk and chew gum at the same time. She can expose this. But if she made a misstep, it is going to cost her a lot of money. So I'm going to read a little bit from this article, and then I'm going to respond with some actual pieces of the defamation lawsuit. Along with having the potential that Owens will have to pay massive damages, the lawsuit is interesting for two reasons. The split it has exposed in the MAGA right between Owens and many of her compatriots, and the potential it has to cause real headaches for Donald Trump, who has had to tend to some awkwardly complicated diplomatic relations. I recently had the displeasure of diving very deep into Owens' allegations, and while they're a little hard to sum up in part because her story keeps shifting, as the Macron's lawsuit notes, Owens dropped some of her evidence as it has been disproven. To describe them as unhinged doesn't go anywhere near far enough. Yes, there are aspects to some of the things Owens has thrown out there that she has no longer followed up on. And by all means, if you're not doing anything defamatory, if you're just showing your work and asking questions, that's legal. Some might say it's not an ethical way for her to use her platform, but it's illegal. It's at which point that you start saying, this is the definitive truth, there is a conspiracy. That in and of itself could be defamation. Owens claims that Brigitte Macron is in fact her brother Jean-Michel Trogneux, who transitioned into Brigitte in his early 30s and committed plenty of identity fraud along the way. And again, identity fraud is also would be defamatory to accuse them of that. Owens goes on to allege that Emmanuel Macron is a victim of Jean-Michel's grooming. Now, Emmanuel Macron is a victim of Brigitte Macron's grooming, as far as she was his teacher in a position of power and he was a teenager, not nearly as close to an adult as some would want you to think. That's a separate argument. So a lot of people say, no, it's not about this, it's about that. Well, it's about this when it comes to the defamation suit. The grooming and all of that, I mean, that's a 40-year-old story, which they're still married. I don't know what else to do about that. There is no sort of, I don't believe there's any sort of a time period in which she's going to get prosecuted for that. That just exists, right? That exists. But that does not prove the other things to be true. You got to be fair. That's what the courts are about, right? You can be upset and call her a creep and all these things. But for Candace to say, you are a man, you were born a man, it's like, okay, maybe she's right. Maybe I'm crazy. But maybe she's wrong, and that would be very costly. She gets more outlandish from there. The Macrons, she insists, are possibly linked to a centuries-old cult called the Frankists, devoted to undermining Western civilization at every turn. Emmanuel Macron is the victim of the CIA's MK-Ultra brainwashing. Perhaps Owens has said Emmanuel is Brigitte's Jean-Michel's son. Owens also alleges that both members of the presidential couple are being blackmailed by a sinister cabal. There's a lot of evidence that Owens' core claims are not true, including photographs in Brigitte Macron's birth announcement in a local newspaper. Now, plenty of people have said a birth announcement in a local newspaper means nothing. No, I understand. That's not like scientific evidence. But if someone showed me a birth announcement in a newspaper from a long time ago, you go, that's something. But as Candace alleges, just because it shows Brigitte Macron was born doesn't mean that the current Brigitte Macron was the one who was born. that an identity was stolen. Brigitte Macron also has adult children who look a lot like her. Owens explained that away by arguing that Jean-Michel actually had those children as a man with a woman who looks a lot like Brigitte Macron, but is not Brigitte Macron. Like I said, hard to sum up. And that's the problem with conspiracy theories is it works both ways. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, they're all going to look alike. They're all part of this elite kind of, whatever, dressing the same, from the same cult, whatever. It's not science if they look alike. And that goes to not support Candace, but it also goes to not disprove Candace, right? As for Jean-Michel Trogneux, he's still around. The Macron lawsuit provides pictures of him at Emmanuel Macron's presidential investitures, sometimes even in the same frame as his sister, meaning no single transgender Macron could have done a quick outfit change to fool the camera, though perhaps they pulled a prestige-like trick. The lawyers also claim to have voting cards establishing that the brother and sister voted in the same election, but in different cities, proving they are separate individuals. So here's a few moments from the lawsuit that I wanted to pull up. I do plan on reading this on Saturday evening. It's going to take us a while to get through. But I said if we get 500 subscribers, that I'll just read it. If there's enough of an audience, we'll read this on air. And we got well over, I think, 3,500. So you guys spoke. Not everyone's going to want to sit through it. But for those that like to chat in the comment section, double check, make sure you're subscribed. If you want to help us out monetarily, you can join the Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal, where you have private daily live streams in a chat room where you can talk to people about this. Or you can just leave a super chat. That's always appreciated. But otherwise, you get all of this for free. Owens stated that Brigitte Macron was born Jean-Michel Trogneux. He lived as a man for 30 years before transitioning to Brigitte. While he lived as a man, he fathered 3 children. Again, Owens tagged #ChristIsKing. So this is from the defamation suit. Yet again, aligning with the most controversial figures, defendants brought on Andrew Tate. So here we have, and think of this what you will. I don't know if it's too relevant, but maybe it is. Here you have Brigitte Macron's side showcasing Candace Owens' platforming of known conspiracy theorists like Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, a self-proclaimed misogynist charged with the R word and human trafficking. Owens proved that no amount of credible evidence would convince her to abandon her preconceived narrative when she platformed Tate's claim that the French election was rigged, like the 2020 election. Owens went further, claiming that the Macrons are being blackmailed and they are being selected for these positions. She dismissed all critics by saying the Matrix is targeting her for exposing the supposed homosexuality and pedo ring taking place in the world. In her Twitter post, Owens claimed that in mid-November she made contact with a journalist claiming to have a trove of evidence to support the claim that the First Lady lived as a man named Jean-Michel Trogneux before becoming interesting to Brigitte. Owens crafted the post to suggest that she had a news source, but the journalist was actually Xavier Poussard, whom she had already met and interviewed. Owens claimed that just 10 days after their initial correspondence, the Macron sent her a legal letter proving that Owens saw and ignored the Macron's initial outreach in early December. Owens claimed the Macrons demanded she not publicize the letter. In fact, the letter had only a heading stating it was not for publication or attribution, a far cry from the demand she claimed. Most troubling, Owens promised she would publicize the December retraction demand, but she never did. And the reason is clear. The 33-page December retraction demand conclusively debunked Owens' claims and exposed her lies. Now, what I would like to see is the sort of what's in those claims. Now, most people that are on Candace Owens' side that believe her say Candace Owens asked for all this proof. She asked for all of these answers and she didn't get it. Now we have Brigitte Macron saying, we gave it all to you, you didn't air it. That's where the defamation lies, if that is true. Again, we don't know, but these are their claims. So it goes on, they say that Candace Owens teased, and again, this is from page 66 of the lawsuit we will be reading on Saturday. I got to get plenty of Celsius energy drink for that one. Candace teased an explosive photo of Jean-Michel to prove this claim, but refused to show it. Owens questioned who the hell is Brigitte Macron before asserting that the obvious answer is Jean-Michel Trogneux. Owens continued, there's no question that Jean-Michel Trogneux is Brigitte Macron. The only question that I have is what happened to his sister, Brigitte. She promised viewers more evidence about what happened to the real Brigitte, but it never came. To further amplify her identity theft claims, Owens concocted a theory that Mrs. Macron gave an interview under the name Veronique, an openly transgender individual, in 1977. Owens said the voice was exactly the same as Mrs. Macron's according to an AI voice analysis. But Owens admitted she doesn't know much about these softwares and provided no evidence that the analysis exists. Owens used this interview to bolster her claim that Jean-Michel transitioned to Mrs. Macron because Jean-Michel was married to a woman named Veronique. Owens described the marriage as only on paper, implying it was a front for a transition. To make this claim, not only did Owens ignore publicly available videos and photos of Jean-Michel, including from President Macron's inauguration, but she also ignored the facts from her own source. In his book, Xavier Poussard admitted the man seen at the inauguration is named Jean-Michel and lives above the Trogneau family shop in Amiens, France. Owens does not inform her audience of this fact because it entirely debunks her false narrative. Owens insists that if Mrs. Macron didn't take on the identity of her sister, she would have answered basic questions, ignoring that those answers were in the December retraction demand. Boy, I really want to see this December retraction demand. It will be part of the evidence. We will see it. Hit the subscribe button. I will go live and share it when we have it. Owens, and by the way, if anyone has it, email it to me. I just haven't seen it. Owens closed episode 4 by continuing to build her false mind control narrative, and it goes on and on and on. So listen, very interesting stuff. Folks, I'm telling you, I'm coming at it with every critical thinking tool I have. I understand how defensive people get when they go, you don't understand, there's more to it, this, that, and the other. I'm giving grace to you to think what you want about this. Please give grace to me to come at it from my place where I can stress test this. And currently, like I said before, I am not betting a penny that Candace Owens is right. And I'm also not betting my life savings that Brigitte Macron is who she claims to be. As far as we know right now, it's going to court to figure that all out. Now, if I were Candace Owens, I just wouldn't have covered this story in the first place. I didn't cover it until it became a defamation suit. That's just where I stand, because I live in a world where it's like, do what the hell you want with your body. If you're Brigitte Macron, people will say, yeah, but there's more to it, this and that. And to me, it's like, all right, if that's what investigative journalists want to look into, you just got to be careful you don't fall into the trap Candace fell into, which is telling her audience the truth, which is now in question. You know, you got to live by the opinion, die by the opinion. But when you're going to state a fact, you got to make sure it's a fact. She's going to prove that in court. That's where we stand. Hit the subscribe button if you like this. Coming up next, I've got my pop culture and political podcast. We're exposing the Epstein files. We're talking about all of the trends and things going on in the world as we see it. You can also follow me on Instagram at dnealz, DNEALZ. I post my stand-up clips there and other content, and the Rush Hour with Dave Neal on Instagram and TikTok. Go check that out for all of our short form clips. We'll see you coming up next. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.